The Glock 43x and the Sig P365 are the two most common subcompact carry guns on the market. Kicking it off with price for these two pistols, for the Glock 43x, you're gonna look at $485 is about what I'm seeing. Found it on PSA's website for that. For stock 365 on PSA's site, you're looking at about $629. However, we added an X macro frame to this, which is gonna run you about $80, bringing the total cost to $710. Already, the Glock 43 is $224 cheaper, which if you're gonna use this as a carry gun, and let's say you have to use this, the government's gonna take it, so a cheaper gun is probably not a bad option. So the reason we put the X macro frame on here is because the regular 365 frame is pretty small. Even the X series is smaller than I would like. This makes it hold 17 rounds. It fits perfectly in my hand. And of course, we're running a Herrington Arms compensator, so it gives that nice integrated look. You're not gonna add a whole lot more length over the 43. When we show you guys later, size-wise, they're almost identical. For the 365, I think this frame's a must. It's gonna make it to where I'm happy with the gun. The regular 365, right off the rip, I just wouldn't choose it as a subcompact gun. So this actually makes it more interesting for me, something I would consider carrying for a subcompact. And it brings it up to par where I think the Glock 43 is. I think it's above most of the competition guns in this niche. And this frame actually allows the 365 to enter into the competition. And even though you have to buy this $80 frame to make it up to par with the 43X, you still do get 7 more rounds, which I don't know what Glock was thinking, but when you look at these mags, they're the exact same width. I don't know why they couldn't squeeze more rounds into this magazine. I know Shield Arms makes mags, metal mags that hold 15 rounds. So that's an additional cost you're gonna have to buy to make this gun a little bit better. Another thing the Sig's got going for it is it's got steel mags. I don't really know why Glock does plastic mags. They're just gonna get chewed up more if you're doing reloads on the range. So I actually prefer steel mags. One of the big downfalls with this frame and 17 round mag is weight. You're gonna have 7 more rounds of weight. And if you carry a spare mag, it's another 7 rounds. So that's definitely something to keep in mind for a subcompact carry gun. This thing's getting long and heavy really fast. So that's just gonna add a lot of weight to your carry setup, something you wanna take into consideration. Personally, it doesn't bother me. I carry a 320 with a 17 plus 5 and a 17, so a lot more rounds than this would carry. But for somebody who wants to carry a subcompact gun and not have a lot of weight on their waist, the 43X is probably gonna be a little bit better option for you. Not only less weight in the gun, with the gun coming in a couple ounces lighter than the 365, but also ammo is gonna be a lot less weight on your belt. As you guys can see, there's a lot of trade-offs between these two handguns. I'd like you guys to drop a comment down below. What do you guys prefer? Do you want a little bit lighter setup with less rounds? A little bit heavier setup? You know, there's a lot of similarities between these two guns. What gun do you guys actually prefer? Is it the 43X or the 365? A couple things to keep in mind between these two pistols. The Glock 43 actually has a 1/4 of an inch longer barrel. It's like 0.3 of an inch. With subcompact pistols, the longer the barrel, the better. You're gonna be a little bit more accurate. It's gonna be a little more forgiving when you have to take fast shots. So that's kind of a win for the 43X. In this case, we're actually running threaded barrels, which is gonna give you a little more length, which is gonna help. But it will hurt with concealed carry. Longer guns are a little bit harder to carry. This is a Herrington Arms HG43 and an HC365. If you guys want to pick up one of these compensators, we'll have a link down below. You can use the discount code SUBCOMPACT10, save you 10% at checkout. Drop a comment, I'm curious, how many of you guys are actually gonna run a compensator on a subcompact gun? It's kind of a hot topic. I actually prefer carrying a comped gun. It's gonna allow you to have faster follow-up shots. In a life or death situation, I want all the benefits I can get, all the help I can get, but ultimately it's gonna be up to you guys if you wanna run a compensator or not. As for ergonomics, I think the 365 is gonna take the win here. With the original frame, probably not, but with this X macro frame, it just feels a lot nicer in your hand. Something I actually noticed is the length of pull on this is much nicer on the 365 than the 43. I have bigger hands. You can see my finger kind of wants to wrap further into the trigger guard and around the trigger. Then with the 365, I have a perfect trigger placement. Naturally, I don't have to adjust my grip. And when you have to pull your gun out and use it in a situation and the gun feels ergonomic, it's just less stuff that could go wrong in a heated situation. But as for the 43X, there's a lot of hot spots. They went with this really thin frame, so it kind of feels like you're holding a brick. Every single edge on here, there's a hot spot and it's kind of uncomfortable. Again, with the length of pull, my finger wants to wrap really far into the trigger guard. There's little to no texture. Glock left a lot to be desired on this handgun. Sig did a little bit better job with the stippling, the ergonomics, and the size, which is something you have to take into consideration. You know, these guns are almost the exact same length. The 365 is just about 1/4 of an inch longer, but that's gonna make it a little bit harder to carry. So for concealability, the Glock probably wins, but for comfort, the 365 probably wins in that. And it's just gonna come down to personal preference. Another thing to take into consideration is there's almost no flared magwell from factory on this. It actually has like a sharp edge and then goes into a magwell, which just makes it a little bit harder to reload. With practice, you're gonna get used to it, so it's not a big deal. But the 365 X macro frame has a nice built-in magwell. It's still kind of thin, so it's not perfect. The grip is a little longer, so you don't have to dodge your pinky. Whereas with the 43, my fingers are kind of hanging over the edge. You don't want to pinch your hand. Just little things like that all start adding up when you're taking into consideration which gun you should choose for carry. Now moving back to recoil, you'll see in the testing we did, we actually put the Mantis and it flew off the 43X. It just wouldn't hold on there as tight as it should. I think the 43X has a slimmer rail than a standard 365 or a 1913. So if you're gonna buy the X10, take that into consideration. I don't know if they have an adapter or if they have a subcompact model, but if you're gonna use the Mantis for training, keep that in mind. As for felt recoil, I really didn't notice a big difference between the two guns. When I shot the 43X a lot a couple years ago, it felt like a softer shooting gun than the 365. But now that I've been running this X macro frame, they feel about the same. If you're gonna run an X series 365, you're definitely gonna notice the 43X has better felt recoil. It's less, even with the same compensator design, it's just gonna feel like a softer shooting handgun. But with this X macro, I can't tell a difference. I'd love to have Mantis results for you guys, but we just weren't able to get it done. In this case, we were running a compensator on both handguns. Something to keep in mind, subcompact guns are often more snappy. A lot of people jump to these for their wives, fiancés, girlfriends, whatever, and they give a girl a snappier pistol, where I think a woman would benefit with a little bit heavier handgun. It's gonna be a little harder to carry, but you know, you can also add a compensator. It's gonna reduce that muzzle flip and felt recoil in the hand, especially with our side ports. It's just gonna help you out a little bit. All these things you just need to keep in mind when you're picking a handgun, including aftermarket support, something we haven't talked about yet. The 365 is super customizable. With the FCU, you can pull it out, put it in almost any frame. There's a lot of amazing aluminum frame options. We actually have a couple on the site at Herrington Arms. You're just gonna get a lot more customization, but it's gonna increase cost. So if you're looking for a budget build, you can buy the 365 stock. It's gonna be a great gun, and then you can grow into it. If you get some more money down the road, you wanna do a different frame, a different trigger, whatever, you can do that. There's just more customization around the frame. With the Glock 43, there's still tremendous aftermarket support, you know, with the typical stuff, mag wells, mag extensions, optics, triggers, mag releases, all those typical things, but you can't change the frame. Unless you send this out to get it stippled, you're just kind of stuck with what you got. It's not a bad option, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. At the end of the day, is the Sig 365 worth the extra money? No, it's not. In my opinion, it's nice to have the extra rounds, but you can get a mag extension. It's nice to have the extra grip texture, but you can get it stippled. For $225 more, I don't think it's worth it. This gun is an amazing handgun. It's probably, I'm gonna guess, one of the most common concealed carry handguns on the market, and it's an obvious reason why. It's pretty cheap, it's incredibly reliable, and it has amazing aftermarket support. The 365 has this too, but you're paying $225 more. So, in my opinion, Glock 43X is gonna win. In most of the categories, the 365 wins, but it's a lot more money. And if you have that money to buy this, maybe this is gonna be the option for you. But for most shooters, I feel like the 43X kind of takes the cake on that. If you guys feel like you learned something in this video, we'd appreciate a like. If you want a compensator, head over to harringtonarms.com. Use the discount code SUBCOMPACT10, save you some money. We'll see you next time.